There are two websites that you should be at the very least aware of as a cybersecurity professional, and that's going to be the CWE and the CVE. The CWE stands for the Common Weakness Enumeration, and then your CVE stands for the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. The point is that these two websites provides us with a detailed and documented list of different kinds of weaknesses. The difference is that with the CWE, this focuses more on security flaws within a particular design. We're not talking specifically about products or particular kinds of software. We're talking about flaws in security designs, by software development, by hardware design, and so on. But the CVE, this focuses now specifically on actual products and software in the tech industry. So just as an example, right here, if you go to, there are three main categories. You have the software development, hardware design, research concepts. If you go to software development as an example, you're going to find a list right here of different kinds of vulnerabilities, what are major topics. So right here, for example, let's take a look at one in particular, and that is going to be the data integrity issues. Okay, so let's take a data integrity issues, and right here, you now have different types of vulnerabilities with their IDs, and there is one right here which I found which was rather interesting, and that is going to be the reliance on cookies without validation and integrity checking. So let's see what this particular design flaw is. I'm going to click in there, and now right here we have the description. It says the application relies on the existence or values of cookies when performing security critical operations, but it does not properly ensure that the setting is valid for the associated user. In other words, the reliance on cookies without validation is a concept. It's a design used by certain kinds of tools and software out there. But now we can see that it's actually vulnerable. And right here with the extended description, it says attackers can easily modify cookies within the browser or by implementing the client-side code outside of the browser. Let me just explain to you what's going on in here. Basically, you can have a computer or a network that will grant access to a piece of data to a user as long as that user has a particular value of a cookie on their computer. In other words, the system will not try to verify the authenticity of this user. It will just rely solely on the presence of that cookie on that person's computer. However, hackers can easily steal the cookie. They can modify their own machines to have the value of that cookie. So this is not really the best way to grant access to a particular user. So you can see the description right there. And if I come right down here, you can see an example. This would be the kind of code, for example, that you might find on a piece of software or on a tool that uses this particular kind of design. And it now says that it is easy for an attacker to modify the role value found in the locally stored cookie for allowing privilege escalation. So basically, once again, this particular kind of design is flawed and should not be used. Now, let me introduce you to now the common vulnerabilities and exposures. Now, this right here focuses very specifically on actual products, actual software. And the wonderful thing about the CVE is that it actually feeds into the National Vulnerability Database. This database right here gets everything from the CVE website. However, I would recommend you go with the National Vulnerability Database because it's a bit easier to navigate. So as an example right here, we can see the last 20 scored vulnerability IDs and summaries. You have CVE-2021-26965, and it says a remote authenticated SQL injection vulnerability was discovered in Aruba Airwave Management Platform versions prior to 8.2.12.0. Personally, I have never used this particular software before, but right now you can see that it says, hey, there is a particular vulnerability in this particular software, and you can even see the scores with version 3.1. The severity of the flaw is 6.5, but with version 2.0, the severity of the problem is 5.5. It's kind of interesting how the earlier version is actually more secure than the latest version. It's funny, but this happens quite a lot in technology. And then right here you can see some other vulnerabilities. All of these appear to be specifically for the Aruba software. Okay, right here you have the one with the Bosch video recording manager component. Again, I've never used this one before. But whoa, look at that. Version 2.0 is a 10. The severity is an absolute 10. That is frightening. Anyway, up here, if you go to vulnerabilities and you click on the plus button, you can come right here to the full listing and you will see everything at a glance. And it is quite scary, actually. So right here, you can see they have listings for every month, for every year, and it goes back all the way to October of 1988. Let's go back up in here, and just as an example, let's go to 2021, January. Okay, let's see what we have right here. And it says that 1,936 entries were found for January 2021. That is scary. Just for the month of January alone in the year 2021, we had nearly 2,000 entries. I'm just going to pick a number at random. Let's see what this one is. And it says, okay, description, reject, do not use this candidate number. Okay, it doesn't look like this particular number is correct or has a vulnerability. Let's check another random number in here. And, oh, okay, the exact same thing again. Okay, let's try another one. So sometimes you may get some of these IDs that don't actually have anything. All right, so what do we have in here? CVE 2020-7771 detail. And it says the package exceedable.jsp4 1.0.3 are vulnerable to prototype pollution via the main function. Let's view the analysis description right here. And okay, honestly, I am not particularly sure what this one is. Let me try one more. And let's just try one more and see what we can get. I'm going to go with this one right here. 3004. And okay. All right, this one makes a bit more sense. It says the deposit function in the smart contract implementation for stable yield credit and Ethereum token has certain incorrect calculations. An attacker can obtain more Y credit tokens than they should. So you can see right now that we're talking specifically about the Ethereum token for stable yield credit that has a particular vulnerability. And you can see it has the base score as well as some recommendations and so on and so forth. So once again, as a cybersecurity professional, you should be aware of your CWE website, because many times when you're reading documentations or presentations and the presenter wants to talk about a particular vulnerability, it's more than likely that they will simply use the CWE ID or the CVE ID. So you can come in here right now, you can click on the search button right here and search for the ID inside this box. Same thing with the CVE as well. Right here, you will have access to the search CVE list. You click in there, and then you'll have the box in here where you can also search for the ID as well. Or you can just go straight to the National Vulnerability Database and search for the ID there. But once again, one more time, as a cybersecurity professional, you should be well aware of these websites, in particular if you're going to go into malware analysis or forensics or ethical hacking, things like that, like the technical aspects of cybersecurity. You should be well aware of what these websites are and how to use them. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next class.